Oh, hello again. Tiny YouTube following and people clicking over for a review of a kind of niche bike. It's been quite a few months, which means you get to listen to me pant all the way up the north side of Galbraith here in Bellingham. Oh, we just had a busy summer. Early summer, we went to Peru. I'll get around to posting that video eventually. Some pretty cool rides. Then in June, freak accident put a giant hole in my palm, which kept me off the bike for a couple months. And I'm just kind of slowly getting back into it. But a stroke of crazy luck, and I was able to get my hands on the new, as of September 2024, Knolly Fugitive. It's the top tube. A little bit of background about me. I'm 5'10", whatever that is in centimeters, about 165 pounds, 78 kilograms loaded up. I think I ordered a medium. Everything I ride is medium. I think I could bump to a large, but my background, I grew up riding and racing 26-inch bikes, riding dirt jump hardtails. I like something a little bit more maneuverable. My other bikes are a steel Knolly Tyaughton, they're hardtail, also a medium, and a Knolly Chilcotin, which is kind of their big enduro bike. 170, and that's the last generation, so like a 2023-ish. Oh, I'm really lucky, and obviously a bit of a fanboy for Knolly. But I thought I'd make this as a compliment to the Tyaughton review, because I haven't seen a ton yet out there about the new Fugitive, and especially not in its shorter travel configuration. 125 in the rear, 140 up front. I procured this as a frame and then built it with a bunch of parts I had kicking around or got on closeout, so it's kind of a mishmash. I borrowed a lot of my hardtails parts. The wheels, a lot of the cockpit is all over from the hardtail for review. I'll get all that rebuilt, but it's got a lot of carbon bits. I was trying to keep the weight down, but I know if you're looking at this bike, we're probably not weight weenies. It weighs all built up about 32.5 pounds. I think that's like 14.7 kilograms. Sorry, rest of the world. I will look it up and confirm that. If you're like me, you pretend not to care about weight. But if you're like me, you're also not in such good shape that you can really back that up with being able to pedal an extra few pounds up the hill very easily. So I claim I don't care about weight, but then suffer for it because I don't ride enough or keep myself in good enough shape to truly not care about weight. So like I said, this bike's about 32.5 with a lot of carbon bits, carbon cranks, carbon wheels, carbon handlebars, specialized like eliminator and butcher combo, 2.6, 2.4. I don't remember which is which. Front tires 2.6. Both in trail casing, but I do have a rear tennis insert, so a little bit more weight on the trail casing back there. Pike front fork with whatever the upgrade you can toss into it is. The damper, the charger damper. I went with the one that does have a climb switch and a trail switch because I want to be able to quickly firm up the compression for flowy, jumpier trails, which we'll get into kind of the purpose in a little bit. So a little more background. Like I said, grew up, been mountain biking my whole life. Always a weekend warrior, but I raced a lot in high school and college. It's like early mid 2000s downhill in the Southwest. I'm a pretty average rider, especially in the Pacific Northwest. Hence the name. Oh. Not good no one out here for me to awkwardly babble in front of. But obviously rode all 26-inch bikes, 26-inch downhill bikes, hardtails, you know, kind of run the gamut. Used to race on foes for a very meager kind of partial sponsorship thing, but not really. Just got some deals on frames. Had a Specialized SX trail, like an 06 or something like that. Then did a lot of downhill stuff on. Then I started riding slopestyle bikes as trail bikes for a few years. Never got in the slopestyle because I can't really do tricks, but I love hitting big jumps. So I would just kind of dead sailor over big dumb doubles and then use that same bike to go ride trails. That was always really fun. Some like dual slalom, you know, 120 race bikes, 4 or 5 inch travel bikes. I just really enjoyed that like flicky maneuverability, and those were my trail bikes for a few years. Then yes, I'd say in about 2013, 2014, I got the first generation, that must have been 2015, I got the first generation Knolly Warden that was like 1 or 2 seasons old, and I loved that bike. It was 27.5, 150, 170 is the way I ran it, 170 fork, 150 in the rear, and it was just an amazing do-it-all bike. And I rode that thing into the ground, and I still have it. My wife rides it now. And until like early last year, I was still riding it like crazy. And in fact, I've kind of since struggled to find quite that same versatility. And I think a lot of that's just my own fault for only recently transitioning to 29-inch bikes, my background, and not necessarily knowing what I was looking for. So the first bike that I replaced it with was the Chilcotin 170, and I love that bike. It's fantastic. I still have it. Put a lot of shuttle days on it, put a lot of like Whistler and Sun Peaks, big scary local trails, and it's fantastic. And it even climbs pretty well. Where I found a deficiency, it's probably more me than anything, is smooth trail center flow trails, like almost all of Galbraith. The Chilcotin, you know, I have it built up with a coil shock, like an MRP, whatever their coil fork is. I think the Hazard. I really like it, and a 38 up front, Fox 38. You know, it's beefy, insert in the back, medium casing tires, and it's like 36.5 pounds. I don't care, truly, on that bike. And it climbs great. So much traction. I think it's a comfortable climbing platform even in the slack setting. but it's actually like moderate descending that I find I cannot keep my speed up for like super steep jump trails, which not they're super steep by my standards. You know, the expert and pro lines on Galbraith like Mohawk and Double Vision, where it's just for a mountain bike steepish lips and moderate elevation loss. I am struggling to keep my speed up. And truth be told, on those long, you know, 12, 15, 20 mile rides where you just kind of want a cross country bike, or a, you know, what used to be a cross country bike, a modern trail bike, which I had, you know, with the Warden, but I wanted slightly more updated geometry. I thought I would do something a little smaller, a lot smaller is what I went with initially, which brought me to the Tyaughton. So I had the Chilcotin 170 of the Tyaughton. I think I rocked a 160 fork up front. Built it up to about 31.5 pounds. I keep saying, I don't care, you don't care, but I keep quoting it. For me, that was extremely light though, and that bike climbs, you know, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most cross-country bike I think I've owned since I was probably, you know, in the last 20 years. And it's still a really aggressive, super capable hardtail, but I found myself pushing not the bike's limits, but mine, kind of for the sake of novelty. I'm just gonna try this double black line. I'm just gonna try this double. I'm just gonna try this blank, and the bike is fine. But I am 35. I have a job that doesn't like me to get injured anymore. I have other hobbies that sometimes injure me. I was off the bike or out of commission for work and bike for like a month, for work and for work for a month, from the bike for 2 months. And debatably, that was linked to silliness on the hardtail, just pulling really hard for stuff. And so I kind of found myself in a position where I still want to keep the hardtail, still want to keep the big bike, but just need to replace that versatile, kind of do everything Warden feel. And so we arrived at this. I love the Knolly's formula, which is kind of overbuilt. They're built right across the border from where I am. They are built for terrain that's very similar to what I ride. I think I favor a lot of the same things that most Knolly riders kind of favor. It's not exactly local to me, but it's like an hour away to their headquarters once I cross the border. And the border's 20 minutes from my house, so it's close to local. As the crow flies, it's like 50 miles away. That counts. But I had not seen very much online about the new Fugitive. It's just really new. They're not super common. Most of the kind of quick reviews that I've seen have been about the 140 mil version, which is the same frame, same exact bike, just with a longer stroke shock and fork. I think the 125 uses a 50 millimeter rear shock stroke, and the 140 millimeter trail bike, which is probably even more versatile, uses a 50 millimeter versus a 55 millimeter. And I'm rocking a 140 fork. I went with 125 because I actually really enjoy being kind of underbiked, hence the hardtail antics. I can always build it up a little bigger, but I really wanted something that kind of perfectly split the Chilcotin and the Tyaughton, and I felt like a 125 was closer to that. Oh, this is so playful. Than the 140. Now mind you, this is only my second ride out on the bike, and as evidenced by how slow I'm going, it's only like my fourth ride out this summer with injuries. I did get one solid weekend at Sun Peaks in on the Chilco as pretty much my first ride back from the hand injury. So obviously still taking it easy from that, and still have pretty weak functionality in my right hand. So, inquisitive viewers, you've listened to me ramble for like 10 minutes. How does it ride? Well, climbing, it's fantastic. It does not feel as efficient as the hardtail, as the Tyaughton, which makes sense. But funnily enough, I'm actually a little bit, I wouldn't say quicker, but timing my rides, I'm seconds faster or slower on this than the Tyaughton. And I was generally riding the Tyaughton when I was timing it in better shape. So I'm in worse shape now, and I'm riding up the hill in almost exactly the same amount of time on this bike, even though it feels less efficient, which might be just because I'm in worse shape, or a placebo, or, I mean, let's be realistic, that's a hardtail, and this is a full suspension bike. That being said, the times are not really reflecting the weight difference or the rear suspension difference, and it's barely feels less efficient. The more I ride it, the more I'm thinking, that's just me being out of shape. And the small increase in confidence descending, you know, just the short punchy descents on the climb are probably making up for the efficiency loss uphill to where my times are balancing out, or even a little faster on this bike, because I'm gaining seconds back when things go pointed downhill. Interestingly, and again, this is only my second ride on it, I feel faster on these trails on this than I did on my Chilcotin. Now, I'm sure that would be different. Anything lift access, my crazy, scary shuttle trails that I can't really post on the internet. I'm sure the Chilcotin would be loads faster, but on Galbraith, on all the public trails, I am notably faster on this bike than on the Chilcotin. I think a lot of that's just being overbiked. For me, is not my, until I had the Chilcotin, not something I normally do. And so I'm struggling when the trail's not pointed super downhill on the big bike to maintain my momentum, to pump, to corner. It feels amazing on true downhill terrain, really technical stuff. But all the trail center stuff, all the traversal, and even the tech that they have in places like this, you know, Galbraith, you know, it's not really technical. You know, you've got a couple little things here and there. But even on those trails, this bike just feels like it's carrying so much more speed in the traversy terrain. I find myself using my dropper more than I ever do with either other bike. Clicking through gears more with either than I do with either other bike. And just throwing it around. I actually had to double check when I got the frame that I hadn't accidentally ordered a small before I built it up. Just visually looking at it with the new straight top tube, it is so low. It reminds me of an old slope style bike. I'll put some pictures in, get some better clips of this bike next to some features and for scale, some more build detail, geometry, all the stuff you can find online, but I'll put it in the description. But it just felt, it feels perfectly spot on lengthwise, but so compact. Like in standover height, it reminds me of an old slope bike or dirt jump hardtail, because the top tube is like at my ankle right now. I have a 200 millimeter dropper post and it's sticking out like 3 or 4 inches, maybe not that much. Oh, I gotta stop looking down. Maybe 2.5 inches, you know, 80 millimeters out of the top tube before the dropper post even starts. And that's not any fault of the bikes. It's just got so much standover height, which is awesome. It's so flickable and maneuverable. In most videos, this is where the fun bit would start, but I'm going to be taking it pretty easy, post-injury and unfamiliarity with the bike and with this trail. Double vision. Still kind of figuring out the black lines. Still getting my sea legs under me after this season off the bike and riding a brand new one, but so far the trail down to this point feels pretty solid. It feels absolutely made for a bike like this, just like aggressive trail bike. I forgot to mention earlier, I'm riding it in slack mode, so 65.25 degree head angle. I think like a it's whatever their medium size is, 465, 485 reach, 475. Nothing like crazy in terms of geometry that I can remember. Chain stays aren't super long or super short. Seat tube, like pretty comfortable, aggressive trail bike geo for what that's worth. But on a trail like this, where I was riding the Tyaughton and feeling a little bit undergunned when I would come up a little short on some of this stuff or overshoot it, and the Chilcotin, where I just was not able to keep the speed quite to the level I wanted. Admittedly, I've only ridden this trail once on the Chilcotin, so I probably didn't give it a fair shake, but I was having so much fun on the hardtail. I started riding that a lot more on this kind of terrain and really enjoying it. This drop looks intimidating. It's a decent little step down, but you just trail speed off of it, roll. It's so smooth. This whole trail is just so good. This is all kind of new to me. First series in the advanced line on the left here. I feel like I'm just barely recovering from one hit before I head into the next. So I'm still trying to learn it. Oh, that's better. That was a lot better. I liked that a lot. Oh, hiking back up this reminds me, one other note. I can't tell if it's a lower bottom bracket than the hardtail, the Tyaughton and the Chilcotin, or if it's because I'm using much bigger pedals. These are the Crank Brothers stamps or whatever. They came in a big and a small, and I just went with the big because sale. I have kind of small feet, and I'm clipping rocks. I thought it was with my crank arms on the climbs, but I actually think it's the pedals. My dainty little flippers, like size 9.5, 10 US. I don't know what that is, European, but they probably don't need the big ones. And I've never noticed so many pedal strikes climbing as I have on this, but checking the crank arm boots, these are 165 crank arms, so not super short, not super long, little shorter. But it doesn't look like I'm actually mashing into the crank arms. Checking the boots at the bottom of them, it looks like I'm actually hitting the pedals. So just something to be aware of. Bike pops so well, I'm actually braking a tiny bit into some features. That was sick. Oh, I don't think I got that one. I suck at shark fins. And I'm gonna save my energy for the last little bit of climb. Pop over to the medium. Okay. All right, SST on Galbraith. Oh, so smooth. Love that. I'm gonna try to be concise with my thoughts from here out, since I rambled for 40 minutes on the climb. It did allow me to do more laps than I normally have energy for. Oh. All in all, it feels like a bike. It's not exactly a quiver killer, because that's not what I wanted out of a short travel quote-unquote trail bike. It's probably a quiver killer a lot of places. Okay, back to what I was saying. It's probably a quiver killer in places that don't have ridiculous elevation or steeps for 90% of the mountain biking population in the Pacific Northwest, I might look at the 140 version or the Endorphin if I didn't have an enduro bike, but I do. God, this is so great. It's just so poppy and fast. Oh, missed that one. But if I lived somewhere where I had access to mostly trail centers and then occasional downhill days, I'd have a big bike and this for everything else. Maybe including like slope style dirt jumps, because I'm feeling really comfortable. And a better rider than me could probably make this work on some legit steep lips. This is a really fun roll, drop, step up, step down thing. But I always kind of lose my way. Woo! Yes! I love that thing. Something else to note, I have definitely bottomed out the 125 mil rear travel, maybe even my front fork, but I don't know where. And to me, that means I'm using all my travel as I probably should be on these trails, because I'm not smooth and they're not huge features. Like this is like solidly a 6 foot step down with 10 feet out, maybe bigger, right up there. You know, some of these doubles are 25 feet and I'm not very good. So I should be bottoming out, but I don't know. Like the O-ring says I'm bottoming out, but my spine and my ears don't. And I think that's good. God, it's just so poppy. Some of these I really struggle for on the hardtail because I'm kind of getting my teeth rattled. And this, I'm just flying over them without even really thinking. It's nearly automatic. Like that, I have to think about pretty hard for the hardtail. Coming into that with enough speed. Just because this is rocky and kind of flat. But on this, like, I'm not even thinking about this stuff. I doubt the GoPro's picking anything up in here. It's so dark. My eyes aren't picking anything up. Whew. And I'm slow because I'm tired. Case. Beautiful. All these just little coffee doubles. Berms now that my eyes are adjusting and I can see them. This is my first time down SST on this bike. And it might be one of my fastest laps in this level of out of shapeness in a very long time, since I was riding, you know, 2 or 3 times a week when I was in my 20s. 35 now, and I ride sometimes 1 or 2 times a month. Unfortunately, I'm just really spoiled with the bikes and the terrain I've got. Time is what I'm less spoiled with. 1 or 2 times a month is an exaggeration. I ride more than that, but sometimes That's all I can get in. Gosh, through this section, this just feels so much faster than either the enduro bike or the hardtail. Hardtail, I'm getting rattled around. Enduro bike, I just can't keep the speed via pumping. And this whole time I forgot I've had my shock not locked out, but in the like middle trail position. I forgot to put it in its open position for the quote-unquote tech downhill. And I did that for my first ride too. I put the shock in like middle damping for the jump trails, and then I get to the tech, the fast choppy stuff, and I'm forgetting to even open it up. And it still felt great. Oh, granted, like I said, I've been mostly riding this on hardtail lately, so everything feels a lot smoother. Although that steel hardtail at Tyaughton really tames the chatter more than one might expect. It's not just marketing. Steel really does comply. This is where I can feel my hand injury. My grip strength on the right hand side is just not there. Probably death gripping because I'm out of shape. But anyway, Fugitive 125. Exactly what I was looking for. An aggressive trail bike. Probably a quiver killer for 90% of people, but thankfully I've got an incredible quiver. Oh, and I don't need that. It probably will be my go-to from here out though, for 90% of my rides. Hardtail for hardtaily stuff. Big bike for shuttling and terror. Thanks.